Hello. Welcome back to another Toni Morrison reading vlog. Today we are reading Sula. This is the second novel she's published, which means that's what I am reading for February. And this will also be my last reread of Toni Morrison's before I get to completely new books. I low-key feel like I'm in a reading slump. I started recording this vlog last night thinking that I would start reading Sula, and I just was not in the mood to read at all. Yesterday was Valentine's Day. I am chronically single, so I never celebrate Valentine's Day, but I was having a no phone day, so it was just a lot of media consumption, napping, cleaning my apartment, which is very needed. I feel like I just needed an entire reset, but I did not read. I did read, actually. I read a chapter of An Abolitionist Handbook because that's what we're reading for January and February for Freedom Readers. But I didn't start Sula, which is what I wanted to do. But that's what we're going to do today. It's Sunday. It's real chill. I don't really have much to do today. So I'm just going to read and hopefully get out of this reading slump. I'm in the middle of like 3 or 4 different books right now, and I don't necessarily feel led to pick any of them up. But I loved Sula when I read it the first time. I think I really wanted to finish it in one day. I finished it in 2, and I feel like I could do like a one-day read of this. We'll see. I don't want to put any pressure on myself to like finish this quickly, but I do want to get out this reading slump. Like I said, this is a reread for me. I love Sula the first time I read it. I love Toni Morrison's writing, obviously. I feel like the story was very surprising. I unfortunately was spoiled by the betrayal that happens between Sula and Nell, but there are still so many surprising things in the beginning of this book that I was like shook at everything. Like everything that happens leading up to the big betrayal was like, girl, what's going on in this town? What's going on in the bottom? But I'm really excited to reread it to catch some of the things that I missed, like similarly to The Bluest Eye, where I was really able to draw out more themes and topics that are being explored. Like, I really want to do that again with Sula. So I am grateful this is a reread. I think I need it to be a reread, but in looking forward to A Song of Solomon next month, I wonder how it's going to affect my reading of Toni Morrison of the book, because it'll be the first time that I read it. I will be kind to myself in reading that, but that is next month's problem. We're going to start reading Miss Sula, my favorite. Hey y'all, it is a little bit after 5 o'clock on Monday. I just finished working and I wanted to check in because I did read not a lot yesterday, but I did read. I actually journaled a bit more about my thoughts on what I was thinking so far about Sula. And I have not read at all today. I only got through the beginning of Nell's introduction and like Nell's mom, who she was. We kind of see a bit of backstory on why she is the way that she is. And similarities that I'm picking up between Sula and The Bluest Eye is that Toni Morrison loves to give characters their backstory, and also the backstory of their parents. And even in this instance, the book is called Sula, not Nell, but obviously Nell is an important character. To understand Nell as a character, we have to understand Nell's mom and Nell's grandmother. And we don't get a lot of details, but what we do, to me, it's very important. But what I really wanted to talk about is the foreword in this edition of Sula. I have the audiobook, and it is of the updated covers that Vintage is publishing right now. And with the updated covers, there is an updated foreword. So I listened to that one first. I think for this one, for Sula, it was Jessamine Ward. But in this edition, Toni Morrison wrote it, and something that she brought up that I thought was very important is specifically how she starts Sula. And she says that it's different than any other book that she's written. This book starts with a lobby where in other books she immediately jumps into the setting, into the world, and there's no real backstory. But here in Sula, it has an entrance. The others refuse the presentation, refuse the seductive safe harbor, the line of demarcation between them and us. And in Sula, she introduces the story, the location, and she does so by talking about the bottom after it's been gentrified, like what the neighborhood has turned into a white suburban neighborhood, which by the end of Sula, we do see the destruction of the bottom. In the foreword, she talks about how she wanted to originally start with Shadrach and his character and just immediately put into the mind of this soldier who is suffering from like PTSD or an injury because of World War One, World War Two. But Sula is different from all of her other books, and I'll actually just read the quote because I feel like it's important. But she says, "There was no lobby, as it were, where the reader could be situated before being introduced to the goings on of the characters. As I wrote in that essay, the threshold between the reader and the black topic text need not be the safe, welcoming lobby I persuaded myself Sula needed at the time. My preference was the demolition of the lobby altogether. Of all of my books, only Sula has this entrance. The others refuse the presentation, refuse the seductive safe harbor, the line of demarcation between them and us." And to me, I felt like that was good context for going forward as I read more of Toni Morrison's books. I know that The Bluest Eye is the exact same. She gives you no background about where we are and why we're here. We actually know the ending of the story at the very beginning, and we know that it ends very tragically for most people involved. And in Sula, we also know the ending, but it's the ending from an outsider's perspective, and it's kind of her saying, okay, here, you reader, you're the outsider to the story. Let me kind of give you some context as to where we are. I also had a lot to write about and journal about. When it came to Shadrach, I thought that his chapter is a great introduction to what the story is. Another thing in her foreword, she kind of talks about where she is coming from and why she's writing the book. And part of it has to do with female friendship, what it means for females to be friends, women to be friends outside of the male gaze, what that means for Black women. And I think what she's really doing is questioning societal standards. And what I love about Shadrach, or how she introduces the story with Shadrach, is that we see him experience something traumatic on the front lines, and because of that trauma, he is disoriented. He doesn't know who he is, and that gives him so much anxiety that when he looks at his hands, they like grow. They grow so much that he cannot look at his hands. And there was a moment where he is in the hospital bed and he's staring down at his food, and he notices that the white rice is in its own section and the red tomatoes are in their own section and the grayish brown meat is in its own section. And that gives him some semblance of peace, because all of these things with these colors, specifically these specific colors, white, red, and brown, are in their own segregated places. But he's unsure of who he is, and he doesn't know who he is until he gets out of the hospital. He's arrested. He's arrested for being in like public intoxication. He wasn't intoxicated, he just needed help. And while he was in jail, he realizes that he like wanted to see himself because he didn't know who he was, and he was able to see his reflection within the jail cell in the toilet water. And once he sees that he's Black, he's like, everything's right in the world. Like the quote was, in his joy he took the risk of telling one edge what let me actually, I'm gonna find it in here because I wrote in cursive and I low-key can't read my handwriting. um But yeah, he sees his reflection in the toilet water. He sees a black face, and he says there in the toilet water he saw a grave black face, a black so definite, so unequivocal, it astonished him. He had been harboring a skittish apprehension that he was not real, that he didn't exist at all, but when the blackness greeted him with its indisputable presence, he wanted nothing more. In his joy, he took the risk of letting one edge of the blanket drop and glanced at his hands. They were still, courteously still. And I'm like, dang, that's kind of the point of what this is about. We have Sula, who is this character who defies all odds. She is the outcast of her community because she does not act the way that a woman acts and or a woman should act. And we put her up against Nell, who is this embodiment of femininity. She does what a woman is supposed to do, and what happens when the two of them are in relationship together? How do they respond to things that they do to each other? How do they respond to the things happening around them? And I feel like just in that one chapter, we get a glimpse into the point of this book. So I'm really excited to keep reading with that in mind. I did, like I said, read a bit of Nell, and I don't know, we'll see. We'll see what else kind of comes up for me. There are other small things, like another thing that I noticed, of course, in the beginning, Shadrach is looking for a mirror, and at the end of this chapter introducing Nell, she gets out of the bed. She got out of bed in the middle of the night to look in the mirror. And this is a quote that I actually like highlighted and tabbed during my first read. You can see right now I'm trying to only annotate in pencil in my rereads of these books. Well, this is the last reread for me, but I don't know. This quote was like so interesting to me where she says, after she's like looking in her mirror, "I'm me," she whispered, "me." Nell didn't know quite what she meant, but on the other hand, she knew exactly what she meant. "I'm me. I'm not their daughter. I'm not Nell. I'm me. Me." Every time she said the word me, there was a gathering in her like power, like joy, like fear. Back in bed in her discovery, she stared out the window at the dark leaves of the horse chestnut. "Me," she murmured, then, sinking deeper into the quilts, I want to be wonderful. Oh, Jesus, make me wonderful." I don't know. There's just like so much here about how we define ourselves and what we let define ourselves based on society and our community, really. So I'm really excited to keep reading. I want to keep reading tonight, but I also want to watch the new Tyra Banks America's Next Top Model documentary. I feel like that is what I'm going to spend my evening doing. I'll probably read before bed. I do still need to do laundry, kind of prepare myself for work tomorrow, but overall, I don't have much to do today, which I'm very excited for that freedom. It has been quite a bit of time since I picked up the camera. I went out of town. I think I mentioned it earlier. I've just been in a reading slump all of February. And luckily, within like the past 5 days, I have finished 3 books. Sula being one of them. I was so concerned that I was not going to finish this by the end of February. It wouldn't have taken me long to finish it once I got like back into the habit of reading. But I really do want to stick to like a 1 book per month for this reading challenge. So I was able to finish it this morning. It is Saturday the 28th, so the very last day of February. I have many thoughts, many feelings. I was journaling about them earlier today, which the audio might change because I put my mic down so I can look at my journal. I enjoyed this again. I enjoyed this book for the second time. Toni Morrison is that girl as always. And I don't know. I don't know what it is about this year that there's a lot of discourse around her. And I think I'm intentionally not trying to figure out what it is. As I scroll on the internet, mainly threads, I do see like hints of it, but I don't necessarily want to engage at the moment. And I don't really have a like strong reason as to why I'm not engaging. It might be because I don't want whatever discourse happening to affect how I read Toni Morrison. I have heard like critiques and negative opinions about her work, about her specifically in the past. And for the most part, it doesn't necessarily change how I view her work. I have also just heard things from her that give me side eye, but I already know I don't agree with everyone on everything. So that's not me like discrediting who she is as an author or even just the weight that she has brought to the literary space as a whole. So I'm not engaging with that. And yeah, but I am engaging with her work. So the format that I think I'm going to use in this journal is creating like a list of characters and then a list of themes and topics that I'm picking up. And then I have, after I finish, I write the list of like new vocab words. And then the rest of the pages are just different quotes and thoughts from the book that I am thinking about. So yeah, I mentioned earlier like my thoughts about Shadrach, about the foreword. It's very similar to how I feel ending this book. I think it has a lot to do with society's expectations of people and what they put on you as a person and whatever social categories you fit into. And like the main thing, literally, as I finished this book, I wrote, who are you outside of society's expectations? Like at the end of this, we end this with the ending, first of all, just like the first time that I read it, I teared up. This time I read it, I teared up. What I took from it this time is a bit more mature. As always, as I read a book years after I first read it, which I actually think I didn't read this book too long ago, maybe less than 2 years ago, but there is just a bit more maturity that I'm viewing this through the lens of. And one of the things that came up for me was sitting with the fact that, you know, I am now officially in my late 20s and I'm not in a place where I thought that I should be at this time. And reading about Nell and how she does everything right. She gets the husband, she has the kids just for him to leave her. And at the end of doing everything right, she's still done wrong. On the flip side, Sula, who does everything wrong, she betrays her friend, she goes off to college, gets an education, she doesn't settle down. But at the end of her life, she's like, I think this is what I'm gonna find the quote. No, I didn't write it down. At the end of her life, like as she's dying, she realizes she sung all the songs. Like that's what the quote was. Let me see if I can find it, y'all. Basically, like she's done everything. She's done everything that she needed to do in her life, and she could die peacefully because of it. Like it's not what everyone wanted her to do, but it's what she wanted to do, and it's good that she was able to accomplish everything she wanted. And unfortunately, Nell learns that lesson a bit too late. And I love like at the end where Nell is visiting Eva and she gets that reminder of who she was. Like even at the beginning, after she witnesses her mom smile at the guy on the train, I forgot who it was. Either that evening or whenever she was back home, she talks about being me, like I am me. And we see that version of Nell be pushed to the side, be watered down by her mother, by her parents, to be the perfect woman who grows up, gets married, mind you, to a man who settles for her. They both settle for each other. Jude, when we're learning about Jude, he has all these hopes and dreams, and then the moment that he perceives them to not be attainable, he's like, well, I guess I'll just do the thing that I'm supposed to do. I'll settle down, I'll get married, I'll have the kids. And then then he walks out, then he leaves. So the two of them like settle for each other. They don't even really love each other. They're just together out of obligation. And it's unfortunate that it takes Sula dying and her visiting Eva at the end for her to say, "You two are actually the same. You two are the exact same, and you just failed to realize it. Sula was the only one who was living as herself, and you were just deciding you wanted to be like everyone else. You wanted to be what was expected out of you." This is just a beautiful reminder of like choosing yourself, and whatever that may be, like, are you actually doing what you want to do? Not you doing what you think you should do based on your age or your race or your gender or like whatever these things are. What are you doing what you can do and are willing to do and want to do outside of what everyone else expects from you? And a lot of the times it does feel very selfish. Like Sula was very selfish. It was selfish of her to sleep with her best friend's husband. But she is in that mentality of like, I don't subscribe to whatever your expectations are of marriage, clearly. And Sula's selfishness in a lot of ways was beneficial to her. In a lot of ways it was harmful to her. Like, it's not about perfection. Neither of these women or girls were perfect. They've clearly made a lot of mistakes, but by the end it's clear, at least what I think Toni Morrison is trying to say, it's clear that the ideal is for you to be you. And even how Sula, once she returned to the bottom, like everyone hated her so much that they were better people in spite of her. Like the mom, who was a better mother, and all the wives wanting to be better wives to their husbands because their entire identity revolved around not being her, so much so that when she died, they just reverted back to themselves, or a version of themselves that didn't need to compete with Sula. Instead of them operating within their own minds, they are looking to other people, looking to society to act the way that they think they should act. Like, I think that was the whole point of this book. I was so glad that I was able to finish this book. The audiobook on Libby was also due today, like I'm pretty sure it was just officially returned. So I got to finish my immersive read in listening to Toni Morrison. And yeah, this was my last reread of the Toni Morrison challenge that I'm doing. So next will be Song of Solomon. I am like a bit nervous to start a Toni Morrison book that I've never read. I actually really do enjoy the fact that I was able to reread these books because I am looking at them from a new perspective. I'm also reading them knowing how the story ends, so I can pick up on a bit more of the writing, of some of the themes, of the foreshadowing. But I am grateful that I got to reread these because I was just able to find so much more value out of them than I did on my first read, in a way that like makes me scared to start all of the new books that I'll be reading, but that also means that in the future I can reread these other books and gain so much more from them. That is the end of this reading vlog. It felt so chaotic. I feel like just because my personal life was a bit chaotic, I was traveling and I don't know, just like so much going on outside of my books that I felt like I couldn't really give all the necessary attention to them, but I did make time. I'm not gonna hold y'all. This is the end of the vlog. Next month we will be reading Song of Solomon, which I'm really excited to read. I've heard really good things about that one. A lot of people do say that that is their favorite Toni Morrison, or they will recommend that people read that one first. If you are interested in joining the Toni Morrison Reading Challenge, you are more than welcome to join us over on Storygraph. I will leave all the information down below for you to join. Thank you so much for watching. I will see y'all next time.